What's up, my friends? So I'm with my buddy over here, Manny Khoshbin.
Hey there.
We're having some secret meetings. Stay tuned. What's up, my friends? So today we are here with my dear friend, Manny Khoshbin. We're going to be actually speaking to his large group of these amazing people, real estate investors, lots of entrepreneurs. Stay tuned. We'll see you guys inside.
Good morning. Hi guys. I hope you guys are all safe and well. Today we got a special guest in the house, Andy D. Carter with Andy D. Carter firm. He's the top residential and multifamily broker and investor, does very well. And you guys always ask me about residential. I don't do residential, but my buddy does almost 80% of the deals.
Yeah,
he can tell you more about it. But
we love that market.
yeah, so we're gonna get going. I know you guys sent some questions, and I'm gonna have Logan here read them off. Some are for me, but mostly for Andy. And let's head it off.
So we have a next question from WatchTech. He said, would you guys recommend avoiding tenant-friendly states like Illinois when investing in multifamily? And to give some more context, he said, I live in Chicago, but have hesitated to buy more multifamily due to the very tenant-friendly laws.
I love Southern California. It's a very tenant-friendly state, as you know, Manny. It can be very difficult to get people out. It gets even more and more difficult. You have to know the laws frontwards and backwards. I'm what's called the tenant whisperer. I get in there, I listen to the tenants' needs, their fears, and we figure it out for them. But we also invest in like Cleveland, Ohio. That's a landlord-friendly state. It costs $300 and 13 days to have a sheriff lockout.
Wow.
So we invest in both because we like both. So it just solely depends on your particular model. Here's the worst advice. Like, don't do anything and just wait, right? So you want to get in, and it's always wise to invest first, in my opinion, where you live, learn it. It doesn't matter if it's a landlord friendly or tenant friendly, learn your market.
100%. It's all about preventing those tenant issues, you know, before it gets to that point. But yeah, I mean, I like California as much as it's, difficult dealing with tenant issues, but the price appreciation always
It's hard to beat.
justifies it, yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Next question is from Jeremy. He said, if you have $100,000 to spend on an income property, say in the Midwest, would you buy one or two with cash and use your cash flow to finance your next purchase? Or would you leverage several properties, putting 20% down in each?
You want to hit that one up?
Sure. So it depends on your goals. It depends on your target, depends on your age a little bit. For me, this is an individualized sport. So I really like to talk to my clients and investors on what their goals are and how they can get there. For me, there's the lowest interest rates in our country's history. I like to use the bank's capital, I like to use the bank's money as leverage, but I also don't make stupid buys because I can. I like putting down 40 to 50%, so I'm always in an incredible position. In the history of this country, it's never dropped 50% in 2 or 3 months, so I'm hedged against that. I like the 25 to 30% down. It's very safe as long as you know what you're doing, but I like the 50% down, and I would walk before you run. Start with one, feel what it feels like to be a landlord, know your numbers cold, and then do another one. Hold on to some of that. Like, it's important to have dry gunpowder and don't spend all your cash just because you can.
I agree 100%. For me, I love leverage. A lot of times I do buy the building cash because I have to get the deal, but I immediately take out a bridge loan or do a cash out refi because rates are so low, like you said.
100%.
But again, if you're trying to leverage and max out all your liquidity to buy 4 homes instead of 2 that are great deals, you're pretty much speculating unless they're all foreclosures selling 30-40% below market. So it all is, price drives deals. So to me, the biggest part of that question is what type of deals are those 4 homes?
100%, it's deal specific every time.
Exactly.
Awesome. Our next question is from Matthew. It's good to see you. He said, I'm currently running a retail business out of the location I've been leasing for 16 years. The owner of the building is 92 and not in the best health and wants to sell, but his children are against it due to capital gains. He doesn't want to do a 1031 exchange. Does anyone know of any other ways to purchase a building in this type of situation without having sellers not have tremendous capital gains?
Well, mergers and acquisition.
That's right.
So if they kind of structured, the building could be owned by a business of the seller and he can merge his business with the seller. That's what corporate Wall Street does every day to avoid it. The other way you can do it, they can do an installment sale. It's recommended to prep it 1 to 2 years prior to a transaction. Installment sale is a very common procedure that people use to defer gains. Basically, you spread it over 30 years, and there are companies that pay you 100% upfront, and they'll do the 30-year installment. There is cost to it, but obviously costs are much less than your capital gain taxes. Those are the top two, but merger and acquisition type of transaction obviously makes a whole lot of sense. If the seller's completely getting out, you can kind of merge with their entity that owns the building.
100%. It's super important to sit down with the family over and over again, show them that you care about the building, you care about them. It's way easier to deal with someone like that than just to be like completely corporate. And maybe there's a way to do like some kind of seller financing. So there's a way to kind of structure the deal where everybody's going to win and the family's going to win and you're still going to win. You just have to get really creative. But whatever you do, don't give up.
Yeah, 100%. But definitely consult some CPAs and professionals when it comes to tax planning to kind of prep, what the seller's position going to be. Because obviously that seems to be the issue for them, paying the capital gains. Their cost basis is probably super low if it's 90.
Probably very low, yeah.
All right. Next, we have a couple questions from Masood. He said, Andy, what are the trends in your prediction for transaction volume for residential properties in San Diego and just overall Southern California in 2022?
Great question. San Diego is on fire. It's one of the strongest sections right now. I think they're up like 21% in like a 12-month cycle, which is insane. The Fed just announced they're going to keep the rates low. There's going to be a little bit of an increase, I think, in Q1 of 2022. There's still an incredible market. It's cooled off a little bit in July, a little bit in August, but we still have compressed inventory. We still have tons of buyers.
Low rates.
At low rates. So this is the lowest rates in our country's history. And we deal with buyers every day. And I'm like, listen, it technically doesn't matter if you're gonna slightly overpay for this property, as long as you can afford it today, even if it dips on paper, you have that rate locked for 30 years. People don't really understand how much that property is gonna be
Cheap
worth.
money.
It's so cheap. And here's a conversation I've never had with anybody, and I share this story all the time. I'm so glad I sold that property in San Diego 20 years ago. It's the opposite. Everybody's like, I wish I'd have just kept that property because now it's worth X. So what you do is you get in and you wait. Everybody gets in a big hurry and you hold. That's what Manny does. That's what I do. It's the buy and hold game, always works.
Yep. Yeah, I bought this building 10 years ago, 2011 for 3.1.
It's worth a little more than that now.
Yeah, well, it's on the market for 12 and a half. But now I'm selling it after 10 years because my whole period, it's ready. I'm ready for upgrade.
Yeah, he's already depreciated to where he needs it to be.
Yeah, my cost basis is so low, there's not much more depreciation left.
Yeah, off to the next.
So Andy, it's a loaded question, but when do you flip and when do you hold?
Great question. So if I could go back in time to 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, and we were flipping hundreds of properties, here's what we should have done. We should have flipped 4 and held 1. So for every 5 properties that we flipped, we should have held 1. That would have created a gigantic portfolio that we could have then leveraged later on to buy more commercial, to buy more multifamily, and we can just put these tenants in there because our cost basis was so inexpensive to acquire, we wouldn't have to fix it up as much, and then we could basically put a tenant in there. It is deal specific, like with everything in real estate. Here's the thing with flipping. I don't do it nearly as much as I used to, because no one talks about the short-term cap gains you pay. Everybody's like, oh, I just crushed it and made 6 figures on this flip. You really made 43, you know, but you
Ordinary income. Yeah.
yeah, and then it gets taxed at the highest rate. So, and here's the other problem is we're at the top of a cycle.
Yeah.
You could get stuck with your pants down if you just have the flip wrong by a little bit.
Oh yeah, you're holding the bag.
All right. And you already answered this question, but I want to see if you have any more context. He said, do you think the closings will slow down next year? I own Foundation Escrow, and we really focus on transaction volume. Curious to get your thoughts on this.
Sure. Super good question. So it's still going to be a crazy year. I mean, and you have to look at the data within your area. We look at the 7-day cycle like crazy people. I want to know how many escrows are closing where we're at, showings and pendings and actives and withhold. You'll get so much data just from the front page of the multiple listing service. But talk to your clients. Why are they slowing down? What are they not doing? Branding and marketing. How can they be of more of service? I love title and escrow, but a lot of them get really comfortable because the deals come to them. Be proactive. So you don't care if the deals go down or up, you're still going to be very productive and still very profitable. It's going to be crazy again next year because there's 70 million millennials that are saving money longer, they're living at home longer, they're skipping like the first time home, and they're going to like the $1 million property.
And there's no inventory.
And there's no inventory. And then you have all these people that are baby boomers that have these giant houses for years that are downsizing, and they're all competing for the same price point. So I think it's going to continue to drive. I see nothing to basically push the market down. We had a global pandemic and the market actually went way up. It's because of those low rates.
Yeah, low rates, low inventory. I agree. I think corrections 18 months to 24 months out. And once the rates, creep up, the Fed puts the brakes on, that's when you're going to see the reaction. Yeah.
And there's not going to be a cliff like 2008 just because there's so many laws in place to prevent those now.
And liquidity is unbelievable.
It's off the charts. Here's a crazy number, 60% of homes in the whole country are free and clear.
Wow.
People are sitting on a
crazy.
tremendous amount of just cash and equity within their assets.
So our next question is from Peter. Appreciate you dropping this in the comments. It's a little bit of a longer one, so we might have to go in multiple parts. But it said, good morning to Manny and Andy. Hope all is well. For this week's question, I would like Manny or Andy, so both, to expand on the idea of lender's vacancy factor. Is the vacancy factor based on the occupancy of the surrounding market? For example, if you're buying a stabilized office building that is 90% occupied, but surrounding market office occupancy is at 70%, would the lender base the stabilized office building at the market level of 70%, since you're drastically outperforming the market? Or would the lender base the loan on the cash flow and the ability to cover the debt service for the subject property?
Okay, I'll take that one. Well, definitely the lender will consider the sub-market performance, but also what those tenants' lease expirations are. If the tenants, let's just say you got Wells Fargo, and they don't expire for 10 years, and it's a single tenant building, and you're 100% occupied, well, lender's not gonna give you a haircut down to 75% occupancy because it's Wells Fargo and they're locked in for 5 years. So it all really is a case by case basis, depending on who's on your rent roster and how much those leases roll in the next 3 to 5 years. That's what they look at, your rollover. So it's very difficult, to answer, but you do get an adjustment from appraiser if your building's 100% or 93% and the sub-market is 75 for that, same product.
Yeah, and it's super important to stay proactive with all of those leases. So if you know it's going to be up in 2 or 3 years, 4 years, try to get them to sign an extension early, see if you can do some upgrades, see if you can lock them in, especially if you're shopping stuff around with lenders right now.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And then he followed it up and said, on a high level, what do both of you think about the higher 10-year yield to 1.522% this week? what are your guys' outlook for the general real estate market, both residential and commercial, at the moment and near future?
Wait a minute, the 10-year treasury hit 1.5 to 2 points?
I don't think it went up that much. That's a lot.
I think it was 1.3 to 1.4.
Yeah.
But his question is, what do we think about it?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on it, and then what's your general outlook on the real estate market for both residential and commercial, now and in the near future?
Well, when it comes to residential, obviously it's going to be hot. Andy touched on that: low inventory, low rates, a lot of demand. I think that pent-up demand is going to continue for 18 months at least. Again, it's a function of cost of money. If the Fed, raises the rates, surprises everybody next year because of hyperinflation or some other thing comes out of the side field, then all bets are off. On the commercial side, it depends on the asset class. Office buildings, especially the vertical ones, anything over 4 stories, getting crushed. Just in Orange County is 4 million square feet of office space that's for sublease and vacant. It's the highest ever. We had 1.6 million square feet in 2008 to 2010, so it's like more than double.
Huge.
Yeah. So all that will translate into distressed office buildings 18 months, 24 months, 36 months from now. But if you look at the industrial, vacancy rate is 2% in Orange County, flex space and industrial. So it's really all case by case on an asset class. In general, I think the value add deals will be office, hospitality, some big box retailers, and those are ones, I like to take a look at, see how I can repurpose them, because your cost base is going to be very low on the dirt and on the building because they're distressed. That's where my focus would be, to an investor.
100%. There's tons of opportunities coming in that space, and it's going to continue to grow, I think. And then there's going to be a lot of buildings that are going to get completely repurposed and rezoned, maybe in some areas where there's tremendous opportunity, as you know.
100%. Like the Burr building. I'm trying to see if I can get it,
We're going to figure that out today.
Entitled for units.
No, you should, for sure.
All right, next question is from Reza. He said, do you guys think it is a good idea to invest your money with a bank and get credit line at half rate of the return for real estate down payment? This way I can probably get more of my cash.
I don't quite understand but if he means put up money and pledge it to get a line of credit, or just start a relationship to get a line of credit. In other words, is it secured or unsecured? Is it pledged or not? But all in all, if it's not pledged, 100%. I mean, I've done that with several banks. I have multiple unsecured line of credits which I tap into when I buy a property. But banks are based on relationship, and if you got to put your liquidity with a specific bank that would be open to giving you a line of credit versus one that doesn't, absolutely.
It's super important to have great relationships with banks. Small banks, local banks, all that stuff.
Banks are your partners.
They're your buddies if you can do it the right way. I mean, yes, it's very important to make sure, yes, that you stay on really good terms with them and meet them face to face and build those relationships, because you can get a lot done.
Absolutely.
All right, so next question. Andy, so when it comes to investing, what are your top focuses right now? And do you feel that you have any type of unique strategy that's kind of setting you apart when it comes to investing in residential?
Super good question. We love the 2, 3, and 4 market. I just like it. It's easy to get financing. It's easy to sell later. Super easy to exchange those properties into larger properties. Very easy to sell to a first-time home buyer, first-time investor. It's very easy to become very liquid, fast, or highly leveraged if you need it. I like that feeling. And here's another reason why I love the 2, 3, and 4 market. Rents are going up. Real estate market dips, rents actually go up again. So we're going to continue that as long as people want to live inside. You don't have to have your office in a big, nice, fancy building. You don't have to go to nice restaurants. You don't have to have fancy clothes, but you have to live inside. So and here's the thing with certain cities, especially here in California, we love to buy duplex, right? On a nice piece of land. And then we'll add like an ADU. And then we'll add a junior ADU right off the garage because the city that we focus on, Seal Beach and Long Beach, are letting you do that like crazy. So it's a duplex, but it looks and feels like a fourplex. It has the cash flow of a fourplex. It has the tax basis of a duplex. I like the way that feels, and it's really easy to change those things. Or you take a house and you stick a unit in the back, you live in the unit, you rent out the house, now you're living for free, it's covering the mortgage. I like that model. It's simple, it's easy, I'm not that bright, and I like the math around it.
I like that. So on a 2, 3, 4, since it's very obviously popular and everybody's trying to buy those, I mean, do you find any that are value add in this market?
Tons of them. And that's why we send out letters to all these investors from all over the country that have properties here. Some of them are just tired of being landlords. It's been fully depreciated. They've got low rents. They're just kind of sick of it. Statewide rent control. So we send them letters, we tie up the asset, we close it, and we either sell it to somebody who we know or we keep it in this portfolio. And then we just slap an ADU on for 150 grand that's going to generate an extra 2 grand a month, and then we can refi the asset really quickly, and it's fully stabilized. And so my cash on cash investment is usually zero within 24 months. I like the way that feels. I can do that all day.
Awesome.
All right. Next question is from Chris. He said, how are you protecting in the current residential market? What would your advice be for someone that does fix and flips?
That's all you and the
Hold them. I would literally go back to the model, like for sure hold 1 in 10, but definitely hold 1 in 5. And if you can, I would hold like every other. And then you create a portfolio, and then you roll all those houses into a giant apartment building, and you retire.
Yeah. Well, assuming you're not borrowing hard money at 12%.
Yeah, you cannot do this thing with hard money. You can for your first few deals, but then you got to get really smart. You have to have partners who can sell these things for you as well at maximum. But it's a business, and there's no like real way to be fully protected. You just have to buy well. Like you make all of your money in the acquisition, as you know, and don't be stupid. Like, do not do these giant builds if like the market isn't. You have to know your local market like a crazy person.
Yeah, don't overextend.
Yes.
Especially with the hard money.
Yeah, just a bad idea.
All right. Another good question from Gregory. He said, I live in Austin, Texas, and the real estate market is very hot here. Most buyers opt for all cash deals. What do you recommend for a new investor who can't compete with all cash offers? I prefer to invest in commercial multifamily, but also may consider residential.
Well, do your homework. You find a deal, build your networks with other investors, go in there and basically partner up, source a deal. If you do your homework, you pull up the comps, you negotiate a great deal, tie up the property. If it's got $5,000, $10,000, I don't know what kind of size of a deal he's talking about. But if the market's hot and he does his homework and source a deal, present to an investor, and say, here are the comps, there is this much meat on the bone. Either take a big fee or do a profit sharing of sort, or just sell it and rip it.
It's exactly how I started.
Yeah.
It's the smartest play is you do it slow and safe with low risk. You make all these investors really happy because you're doing all the legwork, all the heavy lifting. You start to take smaller percentages, and then you just basically become like a 50-50 partner with them. Here's the good news. There's so many cities between San Antonio and exactly where he's at in Austin that are exploding with growth.
They are.
And it's not going to slow down anytime soon. There's crazy tech that's going in there.
Because Austin's so expensive, so people are going farther and farther out.
And the same thing happened in Nashville and Boise. You don't have to be right in the epicenter. In my opinion, it's smarter to be just outside because the market's going to catch up to that, and then you're going to light fire with everything else. I love San Antonio right now. It's dramatically undervalued, especially for multifamily.
I agree.
All right, next question from Peter. what are your opinions about Governor Newsom passing laws for rezoning of single-family home to duplex or fourplex? Would you see higher housing prices in California because each home could produce more income and take on a higher debt service?
Yeah, somebody else asked me that there won't be any more single family residents allowed. I'm like,
That's not even close to true. So here's the thing with Newsom, and we're not going to get political on this thing, but here's like this whole thing in a nutshell. Since this thing hit last week, I've gotten probably 100 phone calls from builders and investors. Here's what I'm looking for. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to split the lot. And I've told them all the same thing. You have to go slow. Here's the problem, is this became like a statewide thing. The city still has all the control. So they put the cart before the horse. He passed this big thing, but here's what they also did. All of coastal California, you cannot take 2 lots and combine them anymore because of the housing shortage. So 2 years later, he passes this thing where, oh yeah, it's cool, but it's up to like the city level. So there's no way these cities like will turn all these single family neighborhoods into 2, 3, and 4 units.
and make them a high density, yeah.
It's impossible. They're already parking impacted cities. They're already getting tons of grief from all of these neighbors. These city council meetings are going to explode with pushback. It sounds good on paper,
Yeah, practicality, probably not so.
but it's probably not going to work. There's going to be a few deals where it's going to be great and it's going to be awesome, but they went way too fast, in my opinion, because the cities can kill this. They can say, nope, we don't approve. And it gets shut down. You just bought a property that you overpaid for because you thought you were going to be able to split it. And now you're stuck with a horrible asset. So,
Because your cost, you probably paid too much for it.
yeah, that's why slowly. You go slow and you win.
All right. We have time for one last question today. It's going to be from Chris. He said, Andy, so you are shifting from flipping to just holding to mitigate risk in the current environment. And are you stopping the fix and flipping business?
So I flip still about 4 properties a year, and it keeps getting smaller every year.
Because you're getting smarter.
I'm getting smarter, 100%. And it takes a lot of time, right? I'm a full-time dad, a full-time husband. I love my life. Fixing and flipping takes a lot out of it. There's a lot of risk. There's not a lot of return. For me, I'd rather wholesale the deal than actually flip it. I'm gonna take a nice chunk in the front, no risk, I don't hammer a nail, and then I'm gone. I love the buy and hold model. I mean, I probably fell in love with it 10 years ago. We would flip houses to get cash to buy buildings. And that, in my opinion, is the only reason you should be flipping houses, is to figure out a hold strategy long-term, because that's how you actually get wealthy. Everybody that's flipping houses and driving around in their, Lamborghinis, what are you gonna do when the market turns? There's no inventory. You just borrowed all this money that you're paying a crazy amount on, and now you gotta give your Ferrari back. Now what? But if you have buildings, your tenants will give you as many Lamborghinis and Ferraris as you want.
Yeah, I always say, don't spend the equity, spend the cash.
That's right. Cash flow's everything.
All right, guys, is that it, Logan?
Yeah, there's a few more questions, guys. We appreciate everyone hopping on, and that's going to be time for the day. So if we didn't get to any questions, we'll make sure to get to them after this call.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Be safe, be well. And Andy, thank you so much.
No
Always
problem,
a
brother.
pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right. Very nice.
Very nice.